everyone, today is Wednesday, May the 16th, 2018. It's almost exactly 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I am rocking the clean cut, trimmed down look. Oh, look at that. Nestor wanted to join the vlog. Alright, today, this video is going to be a talking video, so fair warning at the beginning of this video, guys. If you like your videos to be fast-paced, a lot of stuff moving like a lot of my videos normally are, this probably will not be the right video for you. This is going to be a talking video, so if you like good informative videos, please stick around. Today's video is entitled, A Yankee's Guide to the South. And that's because in all my travels and all the shows that I've done, I have met a lot of what us in the South here call Yankees. Now, for those of you who don't know, what I'm talking about when I say Yankees is typically down here in the South, somebody that is from one of the big cities from way up north. Let's say Brooklyn, Boston, New York, these places where you get people that have what we consider the Bugs Bunny accent. And they are very loud, very confrontational. They get up in your space a lot, and that's just normal for them. But for us down here in the South, that's actually considered very rude, very disrespectful, and we have a few sayings down here for Yankees. We say that there's a Yankee, and then there's a darn Yankee. A Yankee is somebody that comes down to the South for vacation and goes back. A darn Yankee is one that comes to the South and doesn't go back. We say that darn Yankees are like hemorrhoids. They come down south and they never go back up. So you can see we don't get along with Yankees very well. But I've also met some Yankees that have moved to the South, took a few years to learn some important lessons about the culture here, assimilated a little bit, had to make some adjustments, and once they did, they actually really like living in the South. So this video is going to be to help you guys out. You Yankees, if you think you're going to want to come down to the South for a vacation, or you want to move down here, here are some of the lessons that your fellow Yankees took years to learn, and I'm going to give it to you all in one video. Okay, lesson number 1 is there is a trade-off with the friendliness of the South. There is a trade-off. People in the South, it doesn't take you long to realize this. They are a lot more helpful, they're a lot more respectful, and they are a lot more friendly. But with those advantages comes a trade-off, and the trade-off is they are also a lot more nosy. They're also a lot more judgmental, and they are also a lot more gossipy. So there are advantages and disadvantages. Just like where you came from, people were a little cold, aloof, and they minded their own business, and the trade-off was you got to live your own life without having a bunch of nosy people looking in on you. But down here in the South, it is exactly the opposite. So keep that in mind. Number 2 is there are going to be foods down in the South that you think of as weird. Just get ready for the shock of it. It's going to be all around you. And honestly, there's a lot of foods from way up north that we think of as weird. Your partly cooked vegetables, your poutine, that deep dish pizza that you guys are so crazy about, that weird frogwa stuff with the pineapple slice and crackers. Yeah, we think of that stuff is weird too, but when you come down south, you're going to see things like grits with all kinds of weird stuff mixed into it, boiled peanuts, Dr. Pepper with dry roasted peanuts dropped in it, and a bunch of different meats that is not chicken, fried up as though it was chicken. Oh, and the tea. The tea down here in the South is sweet. That's just the standard. The only way that you get it unsweet is if you tell them, I want it unsweet. If you don't say anything, it's going to come sweet. We put sugar in our tea. We don't like the bitter, unsweet tea. So when you're trying all this new food down here in the South, please remember, be respectful. Don't get all loud with your loud Brooklyn accent talking about how bad this new food is. Especially when we're talking about fried chicken and barbecue. Because down here in the South, every cook that cooks fried chicken or barbecue believes that their recipe, their family recipe, is the definitive fried chicken or barbecue. And if you go to bad-mouthing it, especially if you're a Yankee, that is not going to be taken well. So try the new food. Try it open-minded, and don't get all loud and insults about it. Now, I realize at this point that I have said respect a bunch of times, so I think it's important that I stop right here and explain exactly why it is so important to show respect out here in the South. You have to understand, a lot of us that have a heritage that goes back hundreds of years in the Deep South to ancient Irish hillbillies homesteading and fighting out their few hundred acres of land, they had a livelihood that was in the form of a few hundred head of cattle that was all within a 1 or 2 barbed wire fence stretched around the perimeter of their property. And they just did not have the manpower to monitor every single fence. So the only thing that kept bandits from coming in with a single pair of wire cutters and just cutting that barbed wire and rustling off with their entire livelihood and leaving their family there to starve, the only thing that kept people from doing that was a respect for their family. So if it turned out that they got ear of somebody that was disrespecting their family, their reputation, or their property, that was a situation that had to be corrected quickly because your livelihood depended on it. So if you found out somebody was spreading false rumors about you or being disrespectful about you or your family or your property, you had to go find that person and you had to face it head on, and it had to be done quickly, immediately, because if you did not, and you showed weakness, if you showed a wishy-washiness about facing this problem, then your reputation would start to go down. So you had to be right there. If somebody's showing disrespect, you've got to make it stop. So that idea, that mindset ingrained itself into the Southern culture, and it is still here. So if you come down from the South, from your big cities where being confrontational and being loud and being ugly and being insulting is just your way of life in those big cities, and you come down here to the South where respect is our currency, you got to understand there's going to be a conflict there, and you're going to have to give a little bit. You can't have that loud, boisterous Yankee attitude out here in the South and think that it's going to work. It's not going to work. Which brings me to my next point. When you're talking to somebody from the South and they use sir or ma'am, believe it or not, they are not insulting you. When we say sir or ma'am, we're actually meaning that in a respectful way. So you're going to hear sir or ma'am, don't be offended. Also, please do not bring up and gloat about the fact that you won the war. And yes, I am talking about the Civil War. And I know it was well over 100 years ago, but believe it or not, people out here in the South do not like it when you bring it up and joke about the fact and gloat about the fact that you won the war. Another thing that should not be brought up and joked about is slavery. Guys, we are not proud of slavery. We are sorry. We admit that we were wrong. If we could go back and erase it, we would. It was a dark time in our history, and to keep bringing it up and joking about it at this point is actually getting a little hurtful. I don't know how else to say it, guys. We were wrong. We were wrong. We're trying to move forward. Please, don't. This is like going to Germany and walking around going, Sieg Heil. You know, places have parts of their history that they're not proud of, and they're trying to move past. We're trying to move past that. Please don't keep bringing it up. Next thing, phone etiquette. Now, this does not apply to doing basic things like ordering a pizza or something like that. But in most cases, even if what you're calling about is a business deal, you do not call, and as soon as the other person answers the phone, you go right into the reason why you called. First, you have to say, hey, how are you doing? And then you have to think back if this person is having some kind of family crisis. Is their mom in the hospital, something like that? And if so, then you have to say, hey, how is your mom doing? And if the answer is something like, well, she's getting worse, you're going to have to take a few moments to express some sympathy. This is just the relationship we have with each other in the South. We are concerned about each other's welfare. Believe it or not, this also goes towards a lot of regular conversations in person and regular networking in the South. It's not just all about business. You have to have a little bit of empathy and a little bit of concern for each other's welfare and how your life is going. A couple of other things that we have down here in the Deep South that you guys don't have very much of way up north is Spanish people and black people. Now, let me give you guys a few pointers here. Let me start with the Spanish. Now, the Spanish, that is a relatively new thing. There's been a lot of immigration happening over the past couple of decades, so typically a Spanish family will be first, maybe second generation here, so they're going to be speaking a lot of Spanish to each other. First off, do not get on to them about speaking Spanish when they're speaking to each other. You have to understand that was their first language, and if they're speaking to each other, it's none of your business anyway. So if they want to speak to their children in Spanish, or to their spouse, or to their friends, that's none of your business. Do not get on to them about that. Also, a lot of them are coming from countries that have very, very oppressive governments, and they're not really sure about their place in America. So if you get on to them about anything, they are very good about keeping their head down and just backing away. They're not very confrontational. But here's the thing about these Spanish families. If you have a business or anything like that, it will do you good to be friends with the Spanish families. And all you have to do in order to do that is just learn a few Spanish words. And it doesn't take much. I'm talking bueno, unos, dos, tres, muy caliente, chica, yo quiero, gracias. Now, like for me, I'm a caricature artist. So when they come up and they're trying to decide if they want to get a picture done, I know that black and white is blanco de negro. And I know that color is pretty much the same way it's said in English, I think it's pronounced color. So I can go up, and if I ask them if they want their picture done in black and white and color, and I ask them in Spanish, just those few words has conveyed a lot to them. It has conveyed that I do not despise them, and I'm sad to say they get that a lot. It lets them know that I do not despise them and that I like them, and I'm making a little bit of an effort to speak to them in their own language. And all I have to do is just ask them black and white or color in Spanish, and I have made a friend out of the entire crowd. So this will do you well to remember. Just listen, pick up a few Spanish words, show them that you're making some effort, and they will love you to death for it. Now, with black people, this is something that I learned from a guy with a very strong, loud Brooklyn accent. He was a knife dealer that worked at a festival right next to me down in Florida, and he made a terrible mistake and was completely oblivious as to why people were getting upset at him about this. So I understand there's some people from way up north that do not understand the etiquette. What he did was he went into, I think it was a grocery store on MLK Day, and in his loud, boisterous Brooklyn way was wishing everybody a happy Milk Day. And when people asked him, what are you talking about Milk Day? He would say, MLK Day. Isn't that what MLK stands for? Ha ha ha. I was making a joke about it. Now, it really says something positive for the discretion of the people there that day that did not beat the crap out of him. They were able to see that he was from way up north. They heard his accent, and they kind of understood that he didn't know what he was doing. So that's a good thing for them. But just you guys from way up north, please understand that Martin Luther King, his heritage and his legacy and the things that he taught is still taken very seriously down here in the South, and is not to be joked about like that. And another thing that he did, it was probably in the same store, was when he went to go pay for his groceries, he put the bills on the counter. And the black cashier looked at him and made his change, and he held out his hand for his change, and she bumped his hand aside and placed the money on the counter, placed the change on the counter. And he couldn't figure out why she had done that. This is another piece of etiquette that you learn once you're down in the South. That for a long time during integration, if you did not place the money into a black cashier's hand, it meant that you thought they were dirty or ugly and you didn't want to touch their skin. So even now, if you do not politely place the money into their hand, they're going to take that as a signal of racism. So these are some of the things that you're going to have to learn. You're going to have to pick up when you're in the South. There are some etiquette things that you have to do to show respect and to show that you are not a racist. Another thing is whatever diction or slang or terminology that you are hearing coming from black people, when you speak to them, it is not a compliment to them if you try to emulate that and you try to sound that way. do not try to sound black, is what I'm saying. They will respect you a lot more if you just speak normally, and you do not speak down to them, and you do not cower away from them, but you speak to them as equals. Trust me, honestly, that's all any of us really want. So, when you're dealing with black people, just remember that. Do not try to imitate the way they sound. Do not do these things where you joke about their history or their civil rights leaders. Be respectful, and you will get along great with them. And now the recap. Number 1, people in the South are more helpful and more friendly, but there is a trade-off. They are also more nosy, more judgmental, and more gossipy. Okay, number 2, there are going to be weird foods down here. The best way to deal with it is to try them with an open mind and be respectful. Number 3, respect is a currency in the South that is ingrained into our heritage that goes back hundreds of years. Number 4, there is a proper phone etiquette and conversation etiquette in the South that shows concern for people's personal life and well-being. Number 5, do not bring up and gloat about the fact that you won the war. Number 6, please do not bring up slavery again. We are sorry and we are trying to move past it. Number 7, when we say yes ma'am, yes sir, or sir ma'am in general, it is not an insult. It is actually supposed to be respectful. And number 6, we have Spanish people and black people in the South in greater quantities than up north, and there are a few etiquette things that you will have to learn. Alright, so that is it, guys. I really hope that you guys can use this to ease your way into the South a little bit easier and understand that the Deep South is a very wonderful place. I love you guys. Don't forget to hit that like button. Leave comments, leave questions, leave suggestions. Subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the bell icon to receive notifications. Also, at the end of my last video, I was asking for help on naming this little guy. Once again, I am still leaning towards Nestor, but if I get a suggestion that fits him any better, I will take it. So please, leave some suggestions on what I should name him. That's gonna be it, you guys. I love you all very much, and I will see you again in the next video.